My name is Elizabeth, and this is the story of how my son's innocence, his very identity, was nearly scrubbed away by someone who called herself family. My son, Leo, has my curls. Thick, dark brown, a shade that always glimmers chestnut in the sunlight. It's the first thing anyone says when they meet him, his hair is stunning. I always smiled and said, that's from me. He's 3 years old. Bright-eyed, curious, and the most giggly little boy you'll ever meet. When he laughs, he throws his whole body into it, like the joy is too big for his tiny frame. But apparently, that wasn't enough for my mother-in-law, Janice. The first time she made a comment, I brushed it off. Leo was just 6 months old. She leaned over his stroller, tilted her head, and said, well, he certainly takes after your side. I knew what she meant. My husband, Eric, and his entire family are Scandinavian blonde and porcelain pale. Me? I'm Mediterranean. Warm tan skin, dark eyes, and rich, deep brown hair. My mother used to call it earth-gifted. Janice never said it, but I could feel her discomfort the moment Leo didn't come out looking like a miniature Eric. At first, it was little things. Offhand remarks, oh, that hair's going to be a nightmare in the summer, so thick and dark. I hope it lightens up as he grows. Are you sure he's not too dark to be out in the sun for long? Let me take him to my stylist, she does wonders for Eric's niece's hair. I knew what she was doing. It was subtle, almost deniable. But every comment chipped away at me. At Leo. At our bond, Eric, to his credit, didn't see it at first. He thought I was being too sensitive, that Janice was just adjusting to being a grandma. I wanted to believe that too, but Janice never adjusted. She tried to mold Leo instead. She bought him clothes that washed him out, talked about blue contacts just for fun, and made strange, low-key suggestions that he looked adopted when we visited her side of the family. And the older Leo got, the worse it became. At family gatherings, she would line up the grandchildren for photos and always position Leo on the end. As if to say, this one's different. It wasn't just about looks. It was about control. Identity. The twisted belief that love is only easy when someone looks like you, and still, I tried to be polite. I tried to give her grace, until one day, I didn't, because one day, she crossed a line so permanent, so cruel, I couldn't pretend anymore. She bleached my son, without my permission, without my knowledge. She poured chemicals on a toddler's scalp and told herself it was for family photos. Told Leo he would look just like Grammy's favorite boy. She smiled while he screamed under the rinse. I came back to find my son sobbing in her bathroom, a chemical burn behind his ear, his beautiful brown curls dulled into a lifeless yellow straw, and that day, that's when everything changed. I should have known, looking back. The signs were there: silent alarm bells dressed up as tradition, grandmotherly concern, and passive-aggressive smiles. Janice wasn't loud in her disapproval. That would have been too obvious, too easy to call out. No, she was calculated. Soft-voiced. The kind of woman who delivered insults in satin gift wrap. The first time she insisted on taking Leo for a haircut, he was barely 18 months old. I know the perfect place. She chirped. They do wonders with Eric's niece's hair. So manageable after. You wouldn't have to wrestle with it anymore. I said no, of course. I liked Leo's curls. They were part of him, a soft, bouncing, messy in a way only a toddler's hair could be. But Janice kept pushing. It's too thick for a baby. He's going to overheat with all that hair. You'll thank me, sweetheart. Just let me take him once. I stood my ground. But that was her game, one little request at a time. Each denial made me seem controlling. Each refusal chipped at my image as a mother. While she spun herself into the loving, generous grandma just trying to help. And Eric? He didn't see it. To him, Janice was just being. Janice, she's trying to bond with Leo, he told me. You're reading too much into it. No. I was reading just enough, because bonding doesn't mean trying to change someone, but Janice? She didn't want to bond with Leo. She wanted to recreate him, When Leo turned 2, she started gifting him clothes several sizes too small, all in muted, icy tones that clashed with his warm complexion. "Oh, he'll grow into them," she'd say, folding pale blue shirts with delicate embroidery. "These are colors that look clean in photos." Clean, like his natural coloring was somehow dirty? Then there were the creams, skin whitening lotion for UV protection, she claimed. A children's sunscreen brand I'd never heard of, straight from a box written entirely in a language I didn't speak. "It's organic," she beamed. "European. Really gentle." I threw it out. Quietly. Without drama, but the very next week, a new bottle appeared in Leo's overnight bag after a visit to Grandma's. This time, I said something calm but firm. "Janice, please don't put anything on Leo's skin without asking me." Her smile didn't falter. "Oh honey, I would never hurt him. You know I have sensitive skin too. I just want what's best for him." But her eyes? Cold. Glinting with condescension. And when she hugged me goodbye, her lips brushed my cheek with the kind of stiffness that said, "You'll see. You always overreact." I started limiting visits. Eric wasn't thrilled. "You're making things tense," he said. "She loves Leo." I nearly laughed. Love doesn't try to erase someone. Love doesn't repackage a child to match the rest of the family photos, but Eric still believed the best of her. Or maybe he just didn't want to confront the truth. Because if he admitted what she was doing, what she'd always done, it would unravel too much, so I backed off. I let her see Leo for short supervised visits. Always at our house. Always under my eye, and for a while, she played nice, but Janice is patient. She was just waiting for the moment she could get him alone. Unwatched. Unprotected. That moment came sooner than I thought, and when it did, she didn't hesitate. She bleached my son, she took his trust, his identity, and poured chemicals over it like it was a stain, all because his hair didn't match her curtain-colored lies. It was supposed to be a simple favor. Eric had to work late. I had a doctor's appointment. And Janice, ever the opportunist, had been pestering us for alone time with Leo for weeks, just a couple of hours. She promised. "He loves being with Grammy." I hesitated. My gut twisted the way it always did around her, but I was exhausted. The calendar was full. And Janice had been behaving, for the most part. No creams. No odd comments. Just overbaked cookies and too many toys, so I said yes. Just 2 hours. I dropped Leo off at 2 p.m. at her house, her pristine little colonial with white shutters and beige everything. She greeted us in a lavender blouse and pearls, the picture of calm control. Leo smiled at her and waved goodbye to me from her porch, gripping his favorite dinosaur plush. I should have turned around. I should have scooped him up and said, "Never mind." Instead, I drove off. Praying this one visit would be normal. I should have known better. When I came back at 4 p.m., the air was wrong. You know when you walk into a room and you just know? That eerie silence before a storm? That sick feeling in your stomach like the universe is holding its breath. That's what I felt when I opened her front door and heard nothing. No toddler giggles, no sing-song voice, just water running. "Janice?" I called out, my voice already tight. She answered from upstairs. Cheerful. Too cheerful. "We're just rinsing off. He had a little spill with some juice. Come on up." Spill? Leo wasn't the type to get sticky. He hated mess. Even a drop of jam on his fingers made him wail. I took the stairs 2 at a time, and then I saw him, my baby, sitting on a step stool in her sterile guest bathroom, naked except for a towel, his shoulders hunched and trembling as Janice leaned over him, holding a plastic bottle, and his hair, his beautiful chestnut curls, were no longer brown. They were yellow, not honey blonde. Not golden like sun-kissed summer. No, they were a brassy, unnatural, chemical yellow. Dried hay. Patchy in some places, brittle in others. And behind his right ear, the skin was raw, burned. My breath caught. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. "What the hell did you do?" Janice didn't flinch. She turned around slowly, smiling like I'd just walked in on her baking muffins. Elizabeth, calm down. It's just a toner. It'll lighten up beautifully in a day or two. Toner? Are you insane? He's a toddler. Leo turned toward me, eyes swollen from crying. He looked so small, so scared. His little lip trembled, and when he reached for me, my knees nearly gave out. I wrapped him in my arms, he sobbed into my chest. I looked back at her, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own voice. Why would you do this? What the hell were you thinking? Janice's face hardened. You don't understand. He's part of this family. He looks nothing like us. Do you know how that makes him feel? The other children. Don't you dare blame this on him. I was shaking now. My son was injured. Mentally, physically. Her delusions had hurt him, and still, she was trying to justify it. I used the same brand we used on Eric when he was little, she said, as if that made it better. He never complained. I looked down at the half-empty bottle in the sink. Drugstore bleach. Not toner. Bleach. It reeked of ammonia and recklessness. I didn't speak again. I just picked up my son, grabbed his clothes, and left. Janice called after me, "You're overreacting. Don't make a scene over a little beauty fix." I didn't answer, not that night, not the next day. I didn't take her calls. I didn't respond to Eric's messages asking me to talk before making assumptions. Assumptions, there was nothing assumed, there was only Leo, sobbing in the bathtub while I rinsed his raw scalp with lukewarm water, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." There was only his hand on my arm that night, whispering, "Why Grammy hurt my hair." There was only the truth, and now there would be consequences. I didn't sleep that night. Leo did, eventually, after hours of holding him, rocking him, applying healing cream to the burned spot behind his ear while singing softly. But me, no, I sat in silence beside his bed, watching the rise and fall of his tiny chest, wondering how something like this could happen under the roof of someone who claimed to love him. At 6 a.m., I texted Eric, "Come home. Now." He was already downstairs by 6:30, still wearing yesterday's work clothes and the face of someone who knew the air was thick with fire. I didn't waste time, I didn't scream. I didn't cry, I showed him the pictures. Leo's hair. His ear. The bleach bottle. I played him the short video I took while Janice was still trying to rinse him off, casually humming while my son whimpered in fear. I watched Eric's expression shift from confusion to disbelief to horror. And then, denial. There has to be some misunderstanding. There it was. That cowardice. That desperate reach for any version of the story that didn't involve him admitting his mother was a danger to our child. She said it was a toner, he added. It was bleach, Eric. Bleach. Look at him. Leo had woken up and wandered in, still drowsy, rubbing his eyes. His hair looked even worse in daylight, uneven, dull, fried to the touch. And that red patch of skin was impossible to miss. Eric looked at him, then away. She didn't mean to hurt him. Maybe she thought. I slammed my hand on the table. Stop. Just stop. You need to stop defending her. She hurt our son. He flinched. Good, she bleached a toddler to make him look like her version of family. That's not love. That's control. That's erasure. That's abuse. Eric sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I watched him, hoping, begging, for some sliver of strength. Some fire. Some fury for our child. Instead, he whispered, she didn't know it would burn. She just wanted him to fit in. That broke something in me. He's not supposed to fit in. He's supposed to be Leo. Not your mother's project. I made it clear that Janice was no longer welcome in our lives. Not around Leo. Not in our home. Not even in conversation. Eric resisted. At first, he tried to convince me to sit down with her. To let her apologize. She regrets it, he said, she regrets getting caught, I replied, and I meant it, because if I hadn't walked in when I did, how far would she have gone? Would she have dyed his skin too? Bought colored contacts for a toddler, you think I'm exaggerating. But people like Janice don't stop until they've rewritten reality. The next week, we went to a pediatrician. The burn wasn't serious, thank God, but the doctor confirmed the bleach had damaged the scalp. She warned us about potential hair loss and advised we monitor Leo for any reactions. But the emotional damage? That couldn't be bandaged. Leo became jumpy. Quiet. He'd flinch every time someone reached for his hair. He stopped sleeping through the night. At preschool, he asked his teacher if he was ugly like Grammy says. When I heard that, I excused myself to the hallway and sobbed into my hands. That was the last straw. I called Janice. She answered like nothing had happened. Oh, Elizabeth, finally. I've been meaning to talk. Has Leo's color evened out a bit? I thought the brassiness might fade. You are not to speak to him again. I cut her off. My voice was low. Cold. Ever. Excuse me? You touched my child. You burned him. You traumatized him. And instead of apologizing, you're still focused on the color of his hair? Are you even listening to yourself? Her tone turned venomous fast. You're overreacting again. Always the dramatic one. No wonder Eric, don't say his name. And don't ever contact us again. I hung up, and then I blocked her number. Eric took longer to come around. He tried guilt, he tried reason, he tried silence, until one night, Leo woke up crying again, terrified Janice was going to come back and fix him. That broke Eric too. He finally saw it, the manipulation. The legacy of shame disguised as family pride. The cycle he'd been too afraid to question his whole life. And for the first time since Leo's birth, Eric didn't defend her. He apologized, not just to me, but to Leo, and that was the beginning of rebuilding. But first, something had to be destroyed. I didn't want to go to the family brunch. But sometimes, silence becomes complicity, and I'd been silent long enough. It was Janice's birthday. A grand affair, of course. She rented out a private room at a country club, complete with personalized place cards and floral centerpieces that all looked the same shade of beige. Her world was so carefully curated, not a petal out of place, and I was about to tear through it. Eric hadn't spoken to her in weeks. After Leo's nightmares and the pediatrician's follow-ups, he couldn't bring himself to pick up her calls. He supported me going, reluctantly, but knew why I needed to. You're sure? He asked that morning. Absolutely, I said. I'm done letting her pretend. When I walked into that room, every eye turned. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. There were gasps, some awkward smiles, some whispers. Janice's face, if powdered and pinched, tightened like a corset. Elizabeth, she greeted with a frozen smile, wine glass in hand. You look well. Do I? I replied coolly. That's surprising. Thought I'd look too different to fit in. The smile faltered. I didn't sit. Instead, I walked to the head of the table and stood behind her chair. Everyone, I said, my voice calm but commanding. Before we toast to Janice, there's something you should all know. Chairs creaked. Forks paused mid-air. Janice slowly turned in her seat, still trying to hold on to control. Now is really not. You bleached my son. I cut her off, voice steady. You held down a 3-year-old and poured chemicals on his scalp to make him look like you. Gasps, you could hear the wind suck out of the room. You burned him. Scared him. And then lied about it. That is a vicious lie, Janice said, rising from her chair. Why would I do something so horrible? I have photos. A video. I even have Leo's preschool teacher's report about how he asked if he was ugly like you said. Now the relatives began murmuring. Her sister clutched her pearls. Her niece shifted uncomfortably. You've spent your life trying to erase everything that doesn't match your vision of perfection, I continued. You did it to Eric. And now, you've tried to do it to Leo. But that ends now. You will never see my son again. You're exaggerating, she hissed. desperate now. You're poisoning everyone with drama. I'm telling the truth, I said. And if any of you still want to be in our lives, you'll stop enabling her delusions. Because Leo is not broken. He doesn't need fixing. And he sure as hell doesn't need a grandmother who can't love him unless he matches a catalog. Silence, then someone stood. Eric's cousin, Julia. I always wondered why she dyed her own kid's hair so early, she muttered. That explains a lot. More murmurs followed, some relatives looked away in shame, others shook their heads, embarrassed, not at me, but at her, and Janice, she stood frozen, all those years of carefully crafted image, shattered in less than 5 minutes. Happy birthday, I said quietly, then turned and walked out. I didn't look back, I didn't need to. Because for the first time, everyone saw her. Not the perfect hostess. Not the doting mother or grandmother, but the woman who tried to bleach a child's identity. When I got home, Eric met me at the door. I didn't even have to speak. He just wrapped me in his arms. You did what I couldn't, he whispered. You protected him. You protected all of us. And I knew then, Janice hadn't just lost Leo, she'd lost Eric, and every relative who once made excuses for her was now questioning everything, because when the truth comes out, it doesn't knock, it rips the mask off. She tried calling again the very next morning, 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails. Elizabeth. Please. I didn't mean to hurt him. You're overreacting. We can fix this. Let's sit down, talk like family. Eric, pick up the phone. She's turning you against me. She's not stable, I blocked her, again, but she didn't stop there, she emailed. Sent handwritten letters. Even dropped a gift basket at our front door, filled with little boys' clothes 2 sizes too big, all in pale, bland shades, the kind she always insisted looked classy. As if new shirts could undo what she did to my son's heart. Eric didn't respond either. He didn't need to, because we were done being manipulated by someone who only understood love if it looked exactly how she wanted. It was strange, at first, quiet. No texts demanding family dinner attendance. No surprise visits with passive-aggressive remarks about our furniture or Leo's wild curls. No criticisms disguised as advice, just space, real, clear space. We didn't fill it with guilt or second-guessing. We filled it with us as Leo started therapy. We found a wonderful child counselor who specialized in early trauma and identity issues. She helped him name his feelings, helped him process fear without shame. I watched him begin to smile again, not the small polite ones, real ones, wide, toothy, gleaming grins that reminded me of who he was before Janice tried to refine him. Eric and I began therapy too. There were wounds between us. Invisible ones. He apologized, again and again, not because I demanded it, but because he needed to. He admitted the truth. He'd been afraid to challenge his mother, afraid to lose the version of family he was raised in. But he wasn't afraid anymore. She doesn't get to define our family, he told me one night as we lay in bed, our fingers intertwined. You do. Leo does. We do. And that was healing. But Janice wasn't healing, she was unraveling. Word had spread after the brunch. No one in her family had seen it coming, how badly she wanted control over Leo's appearance. Some stayed silent. Some reached out to us, apologizing for not recognizing her behavior sooner. Others distanced themselves from her. She called it betrayal, we called it consequences. The woman who once hosted elegant brunches, who held the spotlight at every event, was now known as the grandmother who bleached her grandchild. She couldn't bear it. We heard, through a cousin, that she tried to organize a family cleansing, her words, not ours. She planned a garden party to clear the air and return to unity. Almost no one came. She was angry. She sent another email. I didn't read it, Eric did. He deleted it immediately. She said she deserves forgiveness, he told me, shaking his head. Forgiveness isn't the same as access. I replied. And she's not entitled to either. Then came the most desperate move. She showed up at Leo's daycare, unannounced, holding a wrapped box and a manufactured smile. telling the staff she was Grandma Jan and had a surprise for her favorite little boy. She never made it past the front desk. The staff knew the story. We'd warned them, filed formal restrictions, listed her as someone not authorized to approach our son. They called me immediately. When I arrived, she was already gone, after being escorted out and warned the police would be called next time. That was the final line. Eric contacted a lawyer the same day. We filed a cease and desist, followed by a formal no-contact order. We weren't playing games anymore. There were moments, quiet ones, when I felt a pang of sadness, not for Janice. Not really, but for what could have been, for the grandmother Leo deserved. One who'd love him loud and wild and soft and strong, just as he was, brown curls, radiant smile, and all, but she chose her obsession with image over the people who wanted to love her anyway. She chose control over connection. She chose white walls over warm hearts. And once you make that choice, you don't get to be part of our family, not anymore. One night, Leo crawled into our bed after a thunderstorm. He curled between us, little fingers clinging to mine. "I like my hair," he said softly. "I love your hair," I whispered. "Me too," Eric added, kissing his forehead. "It's perfect. Like you." That moment, that was everything Janice would never understand, that love doesn't bleach, bend, or break a child, it protects. It listens. It sees.